Let's see how this goes. My light's not on. I don't even know if I have spark. Everybody, welcome back to the channel and thank you for joining me another week. Behind me, you can see the John Deere 730 that we brought home. I guess it was I went and got it the week before Thanksgiving, and then I posted the video on Thanksgiving. And there were a ton of comments on this tractor, or on that video about this tractor. And before I talk about the comments, let's talk about where we left off. This is a pony start tractor, and we know that there's a problem with the starting transmission. But I drove it home. We were able to pull start it, and we got the engine. The engine sounds like it runs okay. It seems like it might be a little bit down on power, and we'll talk a little bit about that and a lot of the comments that I got about that. But what I wanted to do in this video today was see if I could get the pony motor running. We know that the big engine runs, and if we can get the pony motor running and we can hear that run, then we kind of know what we're dealing with. And then we can start negotiating on a price and see if we are going to buy this or not. So let's talk about some of the comments. Most of the comments, which by the way, I appreciate all of the people commenting and giving me kind of some ideas of what we want to check on today before we dig into the pony motor, or not dig into it, but see if we can get that pony motor going. Most of the comments were talking about why I thought this tractor was down on power, and a lot of people talked about the air intake, possibly a restriction on that air intake. So we're just gonna check the oil bath air cleaner, make sure that the oil level is up on that it's not full of water. I mean, this tractor did sit outside for about 1.5 years. So it's very possible that we've got water in that air, or the oil bath air cleaner, and so that level is a little bit high. So we'll check that. The other thing I want to do is, a couple of people talked about the flywheel. I have read online about some of the flywheel problems, about flywheels coming loose on some of these 720s and 730s. I guess the original design that John Deere came out with didn't do a good job, especially on these diesels when they were coming to a stop. The flywheel could work its way loose. If the flywheel comes loose, then all the splines on the flywheel, or on the crankshaft and the flywheel, kind of get wallered out, and you just have problems. So anyway, I guess there was a upgrade that was available through some machinists called like a taper lock design, and a couple of viewers pointed out that this tractor, when I was showing the flywheel on it last video, they noticed that this tractor has already had that taper lock key design or modification done to the crankshaft and to the flywheel. So it's potentially okay, but we do want to check the crankshaft in place. So we're going to be doing that also in this video. I believe it's supposed to be between 5 and 10 thousandths. You got to be careful not to go too low, or else you've got some thrust washers behind the flywheel that can get worn and crack and fall out, and then you've got all sorts of problems. So that's another thing we're going to be checking on. Another thing that I want to tackle in this video, it's not hard at all, but I want to go under here and just loosen the drain plug, make sure that we've got no water down inside of the oil, the crankcase and the oil, just from sitting outside for so long. Probably should have done that before we started it, but oh well. I'd like to take a look at that. Another thing people talked about was, oof, sorry, I just tripped on that. Another thing people talked about were clogged fuel filters. Yes, if we end up buying this tractor, we will do a complete service, and we'll put new fuel filters and oil filter on it. But for right now, while it's not ours, we're not going to worry about putting money into there. Now, I want to address something that a couple of people talked about. I made a brief comment that the way that these tractors were running when I drove this 730 home last week, going up a couple of little inclines, it seemed like it was a little bit down on power. And it was. I mean, whether it's actual down on power because of an air restriction like I talked about, or if it's just because there's a problem with the governor, it's just not set right, or the fact that when you push that throttle handle forward, you're not actually getting, full throttle. So those are all potential problems why it was a little bit down on power. And I mentioned that I was very familiar driving the 70 and the power that the 70 has driving up those hills. And so I went out and I drove the 70 up those hills. And I made a comment that I can't remember exactly what I said, but something like I would take this tractor 10 days out of 10 or something like that. Man, right now, I'd take that 70, 10 times out of 10. And that one simple comment seemed to ruffle some feathers on quite a few people, saying that the 730 is way better than the 70. Anyway, yeah, I was just saying that the power that the 70 is putting out right now is greater than what the 730 is putting out right now in its current state. I'm not saying that the 70 is a better tractor, but anyway, a lot of people got upset. Oh, another thing that a lot of people talked about was tire size. Yes, the tire size is different on the two tractors. I measured, and this is a 15.5 by 38 inch tire on the 730. This is exactly 60 inches tall. The tires on the 70 are an 18.4 by 30, if you can read that right there. And they are about 56 and a half, but we'll just say 56 inches tall. So yeah, we've got about 4 inches of height difference between the two tires. And the points that were made were pretty valid. They're saying, hey, if you've got a smaller tire on the 70, that's basically giving you better gear ratio for climbing a steep hill. And it's true. So it kind of got me thinking, well, the 730 has more power, or it should have more power than the 70. So which would be better, assuming that the 730 is running in tip-top shape, but the 70 has a smaller tire, which one would be better or have an easier time climbing a hill? So I did a few calculations. These aren't super scientific, but for comparison purposes, I think they do a decent job. So we've got the 730, the PTO horsepower, I looked that up. PTO horsepower on a 730, or the belt horsepower, is something like 58 or 59 horsepower. On the 70, it's about 51 horsepower. So you've got about a 13% increase in horsepower that the 730 has over the 70. Now, this tire size, assuming that the gearing between the two tractors is the same, which it's not, and we'll talk about that in a second. The tire size on the 70, they are 7% smaller in diameter than the 730. So you get a 7% increase due to the tires with the 70 over the 730. However, you get a 13% increase with the power output that the 730 has over the 70. So assuming that the two tractors are running in tip-top shape, the 730 would be about 6.5% better at climbing the hill than the 730 with the smaller tires. Now, as I mentioned, that's assuming that the transmissions are the same, when they're not. Or at least the internet tells me that they're not. The top speed on a 70, the transmission on the 70 is a little bit faster than the transmission on the 730. The transmission on the 70 says that the top speed was 12.5 miles per hour. That's 12.5 miles an hour, assuming that it has a 38-inch tall tire, which this doesn't, we know, or 38-inch rim, which this doesn't. I adjusted that top speed based off of the smaller tire size on this, because you put smaller tires on it, you're not going to be going as fast. And that top speed drops from 12.5 miles per hour down to 12.1 miles per hour. It would be what the book listed top speed for a 70 with these smaller tires. the top speed for a 730 is only 11.2 miles per hour. So actually you have even a greater benefit in gearing in top speed when you have the 730 because its top speed is lower. So when you take into consideration the gearing benefit that the 730 has over the 70 and the power output that it has, which is better over the 70, all of that boils down to, I think, about, if my numbers were correct, about a 22 to 23% advantage that the 730 has over the 70. So I thought that was kind of interesting to kind of look at a few numbers and see, well, how equal was that short little test that I did? Well, based off of those numbers, the 730 with its bigger power and slower top speed gearing, that 730 should have had a much easier time climbing those hills than the 70. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get into this 730 tonight, and let's start by popping that oil bath air cleaner apart. Well, that's tight. I got it. Come on. Okay. That's not too bad. Can you see that? There's your oil level. Let's see, I'll turn it like this. You can see my oil level is supposed to be right here, and I'm just a little bit below that. So I'm going to assume that we don't have a bunch of water down in here if I'm shaking it. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So we're not overfilled with oil in the in the oil bath air cleaner. Now let's look up inside of here. Let me turn my light on. Okay. That all looks really pretty clean. And there's a little bit of grass over here, but I mean, that is a pretty clean air breather, if you ask me. Let's look down the stack and see how clean it is. Looking down inside here, it looks really pretty clean. I'm going to use the camera and I'm going to look up the other end of this and see if there's any blockages, but that's really pretty clean. And let me hop down. If we look down the end of this right here, that's as clean can be as well too. So we've got no blockages in the stack. Okay, let's look up inside here. That's a little bit hard to see, but from what I can see, that air inlet looks really pretty clean. I'm not going to go dig farther into it right now. I mean, I think it's probably not air restriction. So let's check. Let's check flywheel, or not flywheel end play, crankshaft end play. Okay, so another thing, keep in mind, yeah, I don't have manuals for the 730 yet. I'm not going to buy manuals unless we buy the tractor. So yeah, once we have manuals, then I'll know a little bit more what I'm doing. Right now, I'm just kind of shooting in the dark. Okay, so I just took the flywheel cover off, and let's take a look. I just sat here and studied this taper lock system for a second. As you can see, this is the end of your crankshaft, and there's like a collar or a sleeve of some sort. This must be that taper lock system that is sandwiched between the flywheel and your crankshaft. And apparently this does a better job of gripping on to that crankshaft than just these bolts alone. So apparently when you must, I don't know, I'll have to look at this system and see if I can find a little bit more information about it. Oh, look at that. That nut is welded in place. And so is this one. I wonder if that's part of the taper lock modification. You can see there's a key back there. I don't know. I need to study this system. Maybe find a cross-sectional view of this, or find someone that can online that see if there's some text that explains that. But anyway, that's interesting. So I rotated the flywheel a little bit, and you can see that this ring gear is worn pretty badly in some areas. Looked like up here, this is about the worst area. Keep in mind that when I shut this down, I did pull back on the compression release lever right here. And so that allows this flywheel to just kind of coast to a stop. It doesn't come to a stop abruptly based off of the compression of the cylinders. That's why you are supposed to pull this back, is to keep that from happening, so that then you don't just wear your flywheel, or work your flywheel loose, and also so that then you're not always just grinding in the same spot, or not grinding, but throwing this Bendix gear into the flywheel at the exact same spot. But you can see right here, it is pretty worn right there. Anyway, let's check flywheel in play. Let's see if we can. Well, we've got good news and bad news. I'm sorry. We've just got bad news. Bad news and bad news. I've got my dial indicator set up right here. You can see I've got it zeroed out. There you go. Zeroed out. And I have 0 thousandths of an inch of crankshaft in play. None. It does not move at all. That's not good. Unless I'm doing something completely wrong, I cannot get any free play or end play with this flywheel or this crankshaft. I will set my camera up and I will show you exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm gonna grab onto this thing and I shake as much as I can. This thing does not move. Nothing. Now I'll show you the dial indicator, what it's reading. Okay, I've got the camera set up here as best I can. Now I'm going to duplicate what I just did, shake the whole tractor. Well, try to move the flywheel or the crankshaft in and out, and it just shakes the whole tractor. Nothing. Doesn't even move an inch, or 1,000th of an inch, I guess. Doesn't budge. So I decided to take it up a notch, and it did not make a difference. I'll show you. Okay, I'm here on the flywheel, I'm here on the clutch side, and I've got a 10-pound sledge, block of wood. Just hit this thing. Does not move. It doesn't seem to make a difference if I got the clutch pulled back. Same thing. Does not move. I'll show you the dial indicator. I'll pull the clutch forward. Did it move? No, it did not move. It is as solid can be. So let's try this side. Let's hit this end of the crankshaft. This is a bad angle. Broke my piece of wood here, but let's look at the dial indicator. Once again, has not moved an inch. Okay, so I'm going to ask the people out there who are familiar with 730s, is this an issue? We've got 0 crankshaft end play. We've got this taper lock system that I'm not familiar with. We got bolts that are welded, or nuts that are welded, that are pinching the flywheel onto that taper lock system. Maybe that's how it's supposed to be. I just don't know, but I do know that we're supposed to still have 5 to 10 thousandths of crankshaft end play, and we've got nothing. Is it easy to fix? How do you adjust your price accordingly? You know, I mean, that's the reason we bought the tractor here, is to look at some of these things, try to identify any sort of issues that we may have that we need to fix, and then adjust our price accordingly. What sort of knockdown do you apply when you have 0 crankshaft end play? And who knows how long it's been running like this? I don't know. What would you do? Well, I thought that I was going to be taking the hood off of this thing to get better access to the pony motor, but I don't know how to take this nose cone off. And this is opposite from our 830s. Our 830s, the nose cone stays in place and the hood overlaps on top of the nose cone. Here, it's the other way around. The nose cone overlaps on top of the hood. And since I don't know how to get this nose cone off, we're not getting the hood off. So that's going to stay in place. Kind of limits what I wanted to do over here. We'll just have to, well, maybe we'll hook up a battery and we'll check for voltage down here. We do have fuel in here. Oh boy, that's empty though. I wanted to hear this pony motor run. Well, we'll see what we can do. You can see here that the distributor on the pony motor was expertly waterproofed. Uh-oh. I don't know what that's to, but we do have 4 wires coming out of the distributor. Come on. What is this going to? I don't know. Let's check the oil on this. Well, you can see no oil on the dipstick. Nothing. Let me throw some oil on that. Okay, I've got oil showing up on the dipstick now. We're right there at full. So that's never a good sign. I'm going to try to put some fresh fuel into this fuel tank right here. I am going to drain this out though, because I don't know how well. It's probably about a year. There we go. Just dump this on the ground. Let me go clean this out, the sediment bowl. Sediment bowl. It's just full of rust, but I got it pretty cleaned out now. So we'll put this back in place. Yeah, that's pretty tight. Oh, this is kind of cool. So you can see the fuel line goes from the fuel tank back around to this little diaphragm system back here. And I read about those. That's a oil pressure regulated diaphragm. So you can see right here, oil line that goes up to it. And if you lose oil pressure, it shuts off fuel to your carburetor. killing your pony motor before the pony motor kills itself. There. Another thing that's kind of cool about the pony motor on this 730 compared to my 830, I mean, it's the same pony motor itself, but just the fact that the operator, you know, you're sitting so much closer to the pony motor, your controls are just right here. So here's your choke lever, and then here's your throttle right here. That's pretty cool. I'm leaking a little bit of fuel here out of the sediment bowl. Well, might just be dripping. Let's see if we can get this thing to start. Okay, this is the battery that was in the tractor. And you can see it has a date of February of 2024. So it's not even 2 years old, this battery. So thought it would be good, but it has been sitting on the charger all evening and it will not take a charge. So that battery might be shot. But we have another one over here. This one is January of 2018. So that one is coming up on, what, 7 years old? 8 years old? This one I think still works. We'll go throw this one in the tractor and see if we can get that pony motor to turn over. Let's see how this goes. My light's not on. I don't even know if I have spark. Sorry guys. Do a spark test. That's good. Let's see, which way am I doing this? Run. Okay, it started. But it only runs on ether. It's not getting fuel. Where's the button? There it is. Oh, I'm battling this connection issue. I flipped the switch on right here. I have some loose connection someplace. Push the button. I cannot get a connection. I don't know if it's my starter solenoid right here. It was working though. Everything is just a little bit tricky. So I'm having a hard time maintaining a battery connection to the starter. And I think that this connection right here is suspect. So I'm going to cut this off, clean this up, and see if I can maintain that good connection. Okay, so hopefully that's better. Those are tight now, and I think we have good connection. So let's try one more time. Yeah, I've got a loose connection someplace because when I check for power here at the distributor, got nothing. That's with the switch on. Yeah, the switch is on. Nothing. No voltage here. So someplace, you can't see what I'm looking at. Someplace back there in the dash, I've got loose connections. And I'm not going to dig into that right now. Okay, the last thing we're going to do right now, I'm going to loosen this drain plug and see if any water trickles out, or if it's just going to be oil. So far, I think this is a good sign. Not seeing any water. There's oil. Wait, is that water? Yep. Got some water down in there. Let's see how much. There's oil. That's kind of dirty looking. Definitely some water in there, but not a ton. It has been sitting for a week, so I would assume that any water that got mixed in when we ran it last week would have it, by now would have had a chance to separate out from the oil. But just a slight amount of water. That's not great, but... Okay, guys. Well, frustrated we didn't get to hear the pony motor run a little bit longer. I was hoping we'd be able to hear it run and actually rev up and, but it just didn't happen. We've got a fuel delivery problem, I think. That's why it wouldn't rev. And now I know that we've got an electrical connection issue someplace back in the dashboard. But to figure that out, we'll have to take the dashboard apart and things like that. And I don't really want to do that before we even own the tractor. But it is nice that we heard it run. I am more concerned about the fact that we found out that flywheel or that crankshaft end play is kind of non-existent. So we've got some mechanical issues that we've got to figure out on this thing. It has some nice, body work on it and has good tires on it. Has some, some front weights on that are desirable. A wide front end, flat top fenders. But what's that all worth if you've got to spend money, on the engine and things like that? I don't know. So I appreciate any input that you guys have. I will read it, and we will take that definitely into consideration as we go out and make an offer on this thing if we decide we even want to entertain it. So thanks so much, guys, for watching this video. Not a whole bunch happened, but I appreciate all of the support that I get from you guys, and I appreciate any input that you have as I'm trying to figure out what to do with this 730. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you later.